The major key to your better future is you. And I'd like to have you underline two words just to give it some added punch. Underline the word major and the word you so that it reads, the major key to your better future is you. Now, my first suggestion is to transfer this to a card or something where you can put it up where you can see it every day. Preferably, put it up where you can see it at the beginning of the day before you go off to put the day together. This is a good phrase just to glance at to keep in mind as you're putting the day together. It's called the silent seminar. If you'll just let this talk to you during the day, I found it to be tremendously helpful. The major key to your better future is you. For a big share of my life, I didn't have this one quite figured out. Among a lot of things I didn't have quite figured out, many things used to puzzle me back in those early days. I used to wonder why two people could work for the same company, yet one makes twice as much money. Now see, that used to puzzle me. Maybe they were the same age, graduated from the same school, lived in the same community, worked for the same company with the same products and the same services. They've got the same traffic, the same problems, and one makes $1,000 a month while the other makes $2,000 a month. Now that was my puzzling question. Why would this long list be the same, yet the money twice as much? I asked, what's the difference between $1,000 a month and $2,000 a month? And I don't mean just $1,000 a month. I could figure that out. But what makes the difference? Why would one person do twice as well? 3 times as well? Speaking economically now, I know there's more than one way to do well. I understand that. But in this little narrow area called compensation, what's the difference? Well, back then, with my faulty thinking, I tried to reason it out. I thought, well, maybe time makes some of the difference, right? Some people do better because they have more time. I used to say, Harold ought to be able to do well. He's got a lot of time. If I had all of Harold's time, I could do well. Now that's got to be dumb, right? Number one, you can't get somebody else's time. A guy says to me one time, you know, if I had some extra time, I could make some extra money. I said, then forget it. There isn't any extra time. I saw because hey, when the clock strikes 12 midnight, that about wraps it up, right? I mean, you can look around the gongs here for a little more, but it's over. You say to the guy, what are you doing? He says, I'm looking for extra. See, they'll come and take you away, right? There isn't any more time. Now, if you can't get more time, which you can't, what could you get more of that would make a difference in economic results? And here's the key word. Make it a part of your notes. We're going to consider it tonight. The word is value, and I have a little phrase for your notes. Value makes the difference in results. Value makes the difference. You can't get more time, but you can create more value. Now, here's the first lesson of economics. Everybody should learn it from the time they're old enough to understand what a dollar means, how to earn one, how to get one, how to keep one, what to do with it. First lesson of economics. We primarily get paid for value. That's lesson 1, bringing value to the marketplace. That's how you get paid. You don't get paid for the time. I know it takes time to bring value to the marketplace, but you get paid for the value, not the time. Now, since that's true, here's one of the key questions of the evening. Is it possible to become twice as valuable at the marketplace and make twice as much money in the same time? Could you become 3 times as valuable, make 3 times as much money in the same time? Is that possible? The answer is yes, if. And it's always if, right? Life is known as the big if. Harry Truman once said, life is iffy. How true. And here's the big if. We're going to consider it tonight. It's possible to do much better at the marketplace if you go to work primarily on yourself. And that's the theme of our seminar tonight, learning to work primarily on yourself. People have asked me for the last 24 years, how do you develop an above-average income? And the answer is become an above-average person. Develop an above-average handshake. Some people want to be successful, but they don't even work on their handshake. As easy as that would be to start on, they let it slide. They don't understand. Develop an above-average smile. Develop an above-average excitement. Develop an above-average interest in other people. Develop an above-average intensity to win. See, that'll change everything. Probably one of the most frustrating experiences in life is looking for an above-average job with above-average pay without becoming an above-average person. It's called frustration. And Mr. Schoaf gave me probably the greatest clue he gave me when I first met him. He said, "Jim, if you want to be wealthy and happy the rest of your life, just learn this lesson well. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job." That was it, the beginning of the philosophy that helped to change my life. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. When he said that, I suddenly understood why I was broke. I was a hard worker on my job. If anybody would have asked me, age 25, "Mr. Rohn, are you a hard worker?" I'd have said, "Yes, I'm a hard worker. Check my record. I work as hard as anybody." And that was true. I was a hard worker, I really was. But see, that was my problem. I was working hard on my job, but I wasn't working hard on myself. And that was my reason for lack of progress. Some people look for more money, but they look for it in the wrong direction. The guy says, "I need more money. I'm going to go work on my boss." Well, number one, bosses are notorious. They do not play fast and loose with a company till. I've never seen a boss get excited and triple somebody's wages, right? I mean, they don't behave in such an irrational manner. So, see, that's not what you work on. Some people say, "Well, I'll go on strike for more." Well, big deal. The problem with that game is once you start it, it's never over. You'll always have to strike. And I'll tell you what, you get by demand. Little bitty pieces, barely enough. And now inflation beats that game, right? The guy demands 10%, inflation's 12%, he's behind 2. I mean, it never ends. So see, that's not the key to success. Success, maybe survival, but not success. The guy in sales says, "I've got it. I'll get me some of those books that teach you the tricky sales, and I'll go leap upon my prospects, dazzle them with my sales footwork, grab their money before they know what's happened." Well, you can play those kinds of tricks if you want to. My observation shows that in the last 24 years, you wind up at the bottom of the economic ladder, not the top. See, it's not what you get by tricks, it's not what you get by demand, it's what you get by performance that counts. So that's one of the key phrases of the evening. It's performance that counts. And I discovered performance comes from inside, not outside. For a share of my life, I was looking for the answers to do well outside, only to find out they were inside. Then Mr. Schoaf gave me probably one of the most important clues among so many things he taught me. But this was in those early days. Mr. Schoaf was very kind, but he was also very abrupt. And he had these interesting questions to ask. I'm giving him a little rundown one day on how things hadn't worked out for me. He said, "Mr. Rohn, I've got the answer for you, if you will. Listen carefully." And listen carefully I did that day. And for the next 5 years, if somebody's wealthy and happy, you gotta listen. He said, "Jim, I've only known you a short time, but," he said, "it's already my honest opinion that for things to change for you, you've got to change. Here's the time to act. When the idea is hot and the emotion is strong, that's the time to act. You say, Mr. Ron, I'd like to have a library like yours. See if you feel strong about that. What you gotta do is get the first book and then get the second book before the feeling passes and before the idea gets dim. Action, pronto. Action, immediate action, as soon as possible. Because if you don't, here's what happens. We call it the law of diminishing intent. We intend to when the idea strikes us. We intend to when the emotion is high. But now, if you don't translate that into action fairly soon, now the intent starts to diminish. And a month from now, it's cold. A year from now, can't be found. So act. Set up a discipline. When the emotions are high and the idea is strong and clear and powerful, that's the time to set up the discipline. Somebody talks about good health stirred, right? I need to get a book on nutrition. Get the book before the idea passes and before the emotion gets cold. Go for the book. Start the library. Start the process. Fall on the floor. Do some push-ups. Action. Gotta take action. Otherwise, the wisdom is wasted. Otherwise, the emotion soon passes unless you put it into a disciplined activity. Capture it. Disciplines is called how to capture the emotion and how to capture the wisdom and translate it into equity disciplines. Now, here's what's important about disciplines. All disciplines affect each other. In fact, here's a good philosophical phrase. Everything affects everything else. Nothing stands alone. Don't be naive in saying, well, this doesn't matter. I'm telling you, everything matters. There are some things that matter more than others, but there isn't anything that does. It doesn't matter. We all pity the man who says, well, this is the only place I let down. Not true. Key to take home. Every letdown affects the rest of your performance. Every letdown affects the rest. This is part of the educational process on personal development. If you don't take the walk around the block, you probably won't do the apple a day. If you don't do the apple a day, you probably won't consist. Start building your library. If you don't build your library, you probably won't keep a journal, and you won't take pictures, and you won't do this. You won't do wise things with your money, won't do wise things with your time, won't do wise things with your possibilities and relationships. And the first thing you know, 6 years of that accumulated, and we say you have messed up. So the whole key to reversing that process now is to start picking up these disciplines. Now here's the positive side. Every new discipline affects the rest of your disciplines. Every new one affects the rest. That's why action is so important. The least action, the smallest action, take it. Because when you start accomplishing and the value starts to return from that one action, it'll inspire you to do the next one and the next one and the next one. You start walking around the block. It'll inspire you to get an apple. Get an apple. It'll inspire you to get a book. Get a book. It'll inspire you to get a journal. Get a journal. It'll inspire you to grow, develop some skills. All disciplines affect each other. Every lack affects the rest. Every new affects the rest. The key is to diminish the lack and set up the new, and you started a whole new life process. Key also, one more thought on discipline. Here's the greatest value of discipline: self-worth, self-esteem. People are teaching self-esteem these days, but they don't connect it to disciplines. The least lack of discipline, and it starts to erode our psyche. One of the greatest temptations is to just ease up a little bit, right? The slightest lack of doing your best starts to erode the psyche. Instead of doing your best, doing just a little less than your best. Sure enough, you say, well, it's just going to affect my sales. No, it's going to affect your consciousness. It's going to affect your philosophy. Now, you've begun in the slightest way to affect your own philosophy. Here's the problem with the least neglect. Neglect starts as an infection, and if you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease. And the worst of all, when neglect starts, it diminishes our self-worth, our self-confidence, our self-value. You say, well, how can I get back my self-respect? I'm telling you, you don't have to go to 29 classes. All you have to do is start the smallest discipline that now corresponds to your own philosophy. Like I should, and I could, and I will. No longer will I let neglect stack up on me, so that I will have the sorry scenario 6 years from now giving some excuse instead of celebrating my progress. That's the key to discipline. Okay, let's get kids involved in the least of disciplines. One more, and then one more, and then another one, and then another one, and then some more. And the first thing you know, you're starting to weave the tapestry of a disciplined life into which you can pour more wisdom and more attitude and more strong feeling, more faith and more courage. Now you've got something, a vessel in which to put it. And now the equities start to flow and the early return. I'm telling you, if you'll start this process, the early return will have you so excited you'll commit yourself to this strategy for the rest of your life. You'll never go back to the old ways. Join a new crowd, join a new group, the disciplines to do it. Take action. I recommended the last time I was here the little book, Richest Man in Babylon. And I said, I've lectured now to over 3 million people in the last 33 years. And I've recommended this little book to almost all of them, I think. Guess how many have actually gone and got this little book answer? Very few. My best guess is 10%. Such an easy thing to do in that last seminar, right? I suggested this little book. Number one, it's easy to find. Number two, it's easy to buy. The most you can pay for it. $6, $7, $8 you can borrow that from your kids. And number three, it's easy to read. It's in story form. That's why I use it for teenagers. Teaching them how to be rich by 40, 35 if you're extra bright. Much sooner if you find a unique opportunity. But if it's easy to find and easy to buy, and if it's easy to read, why wouldn't everybody go get it? We don't know. What do you know? You don't know? I don't know. Nobody knows. Here's how profound it is. Some do and some don't. Now here's the numbers. About 10% do, 90% don't or won't. We don't know the mystery of that. And I'm telling you, 10 years from now, those numbers will still be the same. 10% will, 90% won't. The numbers don't change. Only the faces change. You're looking at one of the faces. I used to belong to the 90% who couldn't be bothered even if it was easy. Guess how many people have a library card? Wisdom of the world available. Transform your life in any value amount you want. By the way, how much is a library card in Texas free? Here's what free is: easy. I mean, it can't be any easier than free. Somebody says, well, would you bring it by? Well, no, at least you got to go get it. No. Wisdom of the world available. Transform your life spiritually, socially, personally, economically, and every other way. Teach you how to be rich and powerful and sophisticated and healthy, influential. How many people have a library card? Answer: 3%. 95, 97%. Couldn't be bothered. Guy specializes in happy hour, but he doesn't have a cardinal. And now, readily and quickly blames the government and blames his company and blames policy and blames the pay scale. When if he only knew if he joined the 3%. Here's my advice to you today. Walk away from the 97%. Don't talk like they talk. Don't act like they act. Don't go where they go. Don't specialize in what they specialize in. Throw away the blameless. They cling to start you a new life. You say, well, is it as simple as getting the library card and join the 3%? And the answer is, of course. Of course. That's how easy this stuff is. This is so easy. It's so simple. It's not complex. You don't need a 2,000-year-old guru. You don't need multi-track affirmations. I'm telling you, don't. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Don't let somebody sweep you into some contrary way to nature itself. Says, unless you labor the miracle of the seed and the soil and the seasons and God and all the other stuff that's available, sunshine and rain, that's not available to you by affirmation. It is only available to you by labor. So labor well, okay? Learn well, discipline yourself well. You can have all the treasures you want. This stuff's easy and simple. It's not ocean waves and seagulls. You don't have to move to Sedona, where all the force fields come together in Arizona. Let's teach our kids the simple ways to transform their health. Number one, their economics. Number two, their ability to communicate. Number three, their life and treasure and lifestyle. Number four, spirituality. Number five, and the list goes on and on. Let's not leave out any of the least of disciplines that encourage us to do the next one, to do the next one, to do the next one. First thing, this whole scenario for you is spinning up instead of out of control. On the negative side, this is all you got to do. It's as simple as this. It's as simple as start committing yourself to life change. And once you start down this road, I promise you, you'll join the 10% and the 3%.